we will overcome that barrier. So we would want to answer the questions that the users are not asking, or they don't even know how to ask the questions. So,
Ramesh Panuganty, thank you so much for being on my show. How are you?
I'm good, Michael. Thanks for the call. Yeah.
Thank you very much for being here. It's a privilege to have you here. A serial entrepreneur. I think that you are the definition of a serial entrepreneur with three successful companies behind you already. All of them were acquired. Some of them by companies that I value very much. I think that until today I still use Splunk on a pretty regular basis. And now you're on to your fourth startup, and I'm very proud to be a part of the journey as a part of J Ventures, one of the investors in the company. And so, before we get to talk about what this latest company is about, Ramesh, I'd love for you to take me back a little bit and what is it about entrepreneurship and about building companies that really gets you so excited? Because now you're on to your fourth one.
So instead of calling it as an entrepreneurship, I let me just say that it was more about being passionate and being about trying to change the world in like a smaller way. And when I was even before I was starting my first company, I thought there is actually a big product market gap in terms of what was happening with the evolution of the cloud. The Amazon Web Services was just starting. It was probably less than 50 people when I first interacted with them. And I thought there is a big opportunity in terms of, say, what the cloud could do for the world and how people can even get onto the cloud. And coming from an experience in operating systems, I started my journey in operating systems. The first product I tried to add and build was the SVR4 Unix operating system. I spent about 6 years on Unix operating system trying to add features, make changes, and then new configuration things like clustering for OS. So I come from the space, worked on OS for about 12 years or so across companies like Sun Microsystems, Storage Tech, etc. And I thought there is an opportunity to migrate enterprise applications from on-prem to cloud and also manage these applications. When I first started selling the product to the customers, not many customers even knew about AWS. So it was actually very hard for them to be convinced to even take a meeting. Not just us, we used to partner with AWS, so even for AWS sales reps. And then we eventually succeeded. I grew the business to about $40 million yearly run rate, and cloud management platforms was the one that I created. But it was less about being an entrepreneur trying to do something, but the idea was about being passionate about a technical problem and trying to solve it.
So when you talk about changing the world and your in your capacity throughout these companies, you it sounds to me also that while you're talking about that, you're also excited about the technologies that you're building, right? These are things
Yeah.
that you're personally curious about and personally passionate about.
Yeah. So all of these companies are very technologically centric companies. Think of it as an IP centric companies in a very positive way, not in a negative way. And I'm very passionate about using the technology to make a meaningful change for somebody. And even in the second company, I thought we could use NLP in a completely different way to create a conversation. And 2014 was when we applied for the trademark on conversational analytics. And then that was the company that I had created. And then we were able to create a meaningful impact on enterprise customers. Of course, we got an acquisition offer much early in the cycle, which we could not refuse. So we got acquired by Splunk. But the conversational analytics, meaning it was less about NLP. We did not use any open source NLP packages, no Stanford NLP, no other NLP. So we built it ground up. Most of the code was actually done in assembly. So 2014,
Really?
times we were probably only one of the 4 or 5 companies in the whole of Bay Area who were working on assembly. So we wanted to give that experience, speed, and performance on the NLP. Now I don't
Wow.
think it actually do that. But yeah, it is about being passionate to that level.
That's just incredible. So passionate to level one of 4 or 5 companies working in assembly out of the Bay Area in 2014, 2015. That's just incredible. So give me a spectrum of technologies that today in 2020 you're personally excited about. I'm very excited about NLP, and I focus a lot of my time at Stanford on artificial intelligence and the different applications that it's going to. But I'd love to pick your brain on the different things that you're particularly excited about as we enter a new decade now.
And as any entrepreneur has to do, I'm very focused. So it is not about AI in general, but application of AI to solve a very specific problem. In the current company in Macheye, we use AI as an architecture to give a play button for the enterprise data and also to solve a big problem in the BI end to end. I'll explain what do I mean by a play button for the enterprise data. So think of it as we are bringing two or three different things in AI together to provide this benefit. Number one is the Google-like natural search experience, and it is a lot more than NLP, and it is about bringing in a natural search experience coupled with ambiguity corrections, coupled with contextual search recommendations, etc. It means that when a customer is searching for sales in Alabama, we have to figure out whether Alabama is a county or a city or a state, etc. So all that is done by us. And second, we understand not only the query, we answer that instantly, but we also get the raw data and apply a series of machine learning models. And even though there are a lot of platforms where somebody can drag and drop the models and analyze, but it doesn't happen for every enterprise user. So think of it as a coffee store manager of a large uh, chain. That store manager cannot deal with all these models. So we do this ML workflow, ML operations on the fly at that point in time. Typical turnaround time about 300 milliseconds.
Wow.
And we actually choose the machine learning models. We do the feature parameter identification, but some of this can happen in an offline basis too. And then finally, we use NLG to produce English and then narrate it as an audio visual. So I assume that a business user is on the go and he asks a question: how many chairs do I order, say for an upcoming season? So think of it as a retail customer,
Right.
and he instantly gets an audio visual on the mobile phone, and that starts talking, saying that these are the number of chairs that you need to order, but along with the chairs you need to buy tables also, because 38% of the customers buy tables along with the chairs. So this is something that you need to look at. So that intelligence we try to bring up and then present it at that point in time. So that is what we are doing at Makai. And we have built the product with AI as an architecture rather than AI as a feature.
So one of the things that I'm always curious about is focus, and one of the things that you mentioned when I talked about how I enjoy, exploring the artificial intelligence field at Stanford, you mentioned that as an entrepreneur, you enjoy, and as a CEO, you enjoy taking AI into an application level and solving a real problem, and not just with the artificial intelligence slogan, but actually one of the applications of it. So I'm curious, within software like Macheye and within a company that seems to be doing a lot, right? You're solving a lot of different problems in one. How do you maintain focus on which are the really crucial problems to solve, especially as you're just starting out and you're just exploring what your users are doing?
Yeah, so how do we identify the problem is number one, first trying to identify what is the business scenario. So the business scenario or the context is business intelligence. And the business intelligence, you define the persona and then you identify what they are and then try to do that. Say, for example, in this particular business intelligence as a market category, there is no use of an image recognition, just as an example. And hence, we don't do anything related to image recognition or image identification, even though it is AI. But it is more of understanding of data, understanding or uncovering the intelligence that is in the data automatically to the user. So that is a big business goal. And the long term vision of us is to be a personal business companion of any enterprise data. As long as the technology can fit into the scope and the use case, we try to stay very focused on that.
So if you're looking, 10 years in the future about how businesses are utilizing data to,
Mhm.
leverage both their day-to-day activities, but also their forecasts and as they scale, Where are we today, and where do you think the world will be in 10, 15 years or so?
In terms of where the world is as of now or as of yesterday without Makai, is that a user has to, or the entire data industry is in this paradigm of what you ask is what you get. So I assume that the business user wants to know something. Say, for example, somebody is asking a question as, how much were the California wildfires this year? Okay, it is actually very hard to get an answer, but you still can get an answer by way of analysts looking at various information, writing a SQL, etc. But nothing more than what the user is asking. And I envision that pretty soon, say us or maybe other companies that are going to come up in the similar space, we will overcome that barrier. So we would want to answer the questions that the users are not asking, or they don't even know how to ask the questions. Say, for example, in this particular scenario of the California wildfires, we may tell that the wildfires in 2020 has been little over 15 times of the last year, or 2020 wildfires were greater than the sum total of the last 4 or 5 years. So that is an intelligence that the user doesn't know. And then we could tell that. And eventually, what we are working on already is to be able to produce this intelligence without any questions at all. So assume that we'll become a click less and also search less product. So assume that if I know the business metrics and the KPIs that the users are interested in, we would want to produce the intelligence even without them asking any questions. And we do that to
Mm.
some extent already. And that is how I think enterprise intelligence will move into.
So, what have you learned over the past three companies that you've built about the life cycle of a company? So, either as an entrepreneur or as a leader or business wise, what are some really key insights that you've generated for yourself as you're now approaching or you're in the midst of your fourth venture?
As an entrepreneur and as a founder of the companies, one very important thing to figure out is there an existing market that we are going after, or are we creating a new market, new product category? Say in our case, it is business intelligence as a market, and there are budgets and customers have budget cycles, and then it means that there is also a competition, there is a legacy competition or an incumbent vendor. And it is very important to identify the difference between these two, existing or new. Because the market positioning, customers' budgets, everything depends on them. If you're trying to create a new product, completely new category, it's a longer sales cycle, and customers don't have budgets. They can only budget for a POC this year and then budget for complete implementation in the next year or 2 years. So that is actually the first one that we need to decide. And the second thing is, what is the value add for a customer?
Right.
You can build great, but if it doesn't deliver a customer value, again, customers may not perceive a value in there. And third is that, can your product stand up on its own, or does it need an ecosystem of other things that need to push the adoption? So if somebody can understand these three things, it's easier to sell.
Were there any challenges that kept presenting themselves that almost seemed to get easier and easier with every venture, but they were the same in nature? So the same challenge, but you were able to tackle it with more and more experience?
It is not always the same challenge, because if in case you see a challenge, most of the times in the next venture you are better prepared and you don't see the same challenge. It is probably a different challenge that you will encounter. And in this company, if I had to tell what is the technological challenge that we had to overcome, was the asynchronicity of this machine learning models. Some of these models can take a long time to execute, and if I have to take the input from a search and then instantly produce a video in 300 milliseconds, some models may not respond in that time. So we had to build an audio or a video engine that works in asynchronicity in nature. So it means that as the video starts playing, we might start appending content to it. So the progress
Wow.
bar can sometimes go backwards and not just forwards, because the total time increased. But
Wow.
but we try to make sure that that experience is seamless, and also present the user experience in a very easy manner. So yeah.
What are some other interesting problems that you're excited about? So obviously, a lot of it is in the world of what Mecca is doing now. But what are some other big picture problems that you think are worth tackling? If for example, young entrepreneurs from Stanford or 8200 are listening to this.
I think there is a big opportunity in the educational space. Coming from having built a company in the educational space in my select year or the third company, I see that there is a lot more bigger opportunity. The existing platforms and solutions are a bit monotonous, and they don't personalize the content. They don't personalize the delivery. There is a lot of opportunity, and as an entrepreneur, somebody would also have a guarantee that people would pay for this, pay for the products that they consume. So education, in my opinion, is on the top of the funnel. And after that, I think insurance and healthcare, I think, could go through a lot of change, assuming that the governments don't stop some things coming into the AI space.
100%. I mean, obviously, with healthcare, we've seen a dramatic acceleration of change and adoption in 2020. And I myself am also a part of a Hippo Insurance, an insurtech company based in the Bay Area. So I can see firsthand the revolution that insurance is going through in these past few years, and it's just remarkable. Ramesh, thank you again for both for coming on the show and sharing your insights, but also for allowing myself at J Ventures to be a part of your hopefully your new success story. And it's still it's a remarkable, I think, for me to think of sitting in front of somebody who's done it three times already successfully, going on the fourth one. But at the end, it's not about the money and it's not about the fame. It's about being passionate about the technology and passionate about improving the lives of either people or companies or people that are working their day to day to ask the most meaningful questions. And I think
Sure.
that I think that it's really remarkable. Before we leave, I have to ask you the most important question, which is three words that you would use to describe yourself, and why those three words.
Um, so the three words, I'm just thinking on the fly. So number one is that I'm very passionate
Yeah,
about trying to solve a problem, whether it is working, say, 12 hours, 14 hours a day. And the second thing is I'm very compassionate to the team, and then I try to think from their perspective to understand them, and then make sure that I help them, I encourage them to get things done. And the third is fun part of it, making sure that it's a fun experience every day.
I love it. I love it. Ramesh, thank you so much. This was so great. Best of luck with the company, and I look forward to keep working with you over these next few years.
Okay, and then thank you for asking all the good set of questions, and I appreciate all the involvement and then trying to do this. And good luck with your ventures.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay, thank you. Bye.